Hello, welcome back to Urban X Files. My name is Keith, and today's story is about a ghostly experience within a care home. Now, this was kindly sent in to one of the people who watch my videos on YouTube. So I am really grateful, Julie, and I thank you very, very much for sharing this experience with me and to share to you guys. Now, Julie worked in a care home in Bolton, and she was doing the tea rounds of an evening, so it was quite late, so most of the residents were getting ready for bed. So which is common practice in hospitals and care homes, is that one of the staff will get the trolley to prepare tea, coffee and snacks or hot chocolate for its residents before they go to bed. Now, Julie had been in the kitchen and had set everything up and went to walk down the corridor with her trolley. Now she heard the boiler kick in, and the boiler kicks in, as most of you will be aware, when hot taps turned on so it can heat the water, which you might think there's nothing strange. So what happened? Julie then left the trolley where it was and went back into the kitchen, but there were no taps left on. She thought this was strange. So when she come back out of the kitchen, she walked past one of the rooms. The room was 28. Now, she could hear running water in room 28. Now, in a hospital setting these days, it is common practice for one of the staff to go round, turn all the taps on and let it run for a few minutes. Now, this is done because of something called Legionnaire's disease, which is a bacterial infection that breeds in the water. So I actually experienced an unfortunate happening many years ago when I was a nurse and I worked in the hospital. And sadly, one of the patients who was coming in to be treated had managed to get Legionnaire's disease, and he sadly died because it's quite a serious infection. So to prevent this, what you have to do is go round and let all the taps run for a few moments to make sure if there is anything there, it doesn't spread and it runs and flushes out. So this is common practice. Now, as Julie walked past room 28 and she heard the tap run, and she thought, oh, maybe one of the staff had started the tap rounds, and she went to open the door, but the door was locked. Now, what is strange is that although it was locked, the room had not been used for over a week, as somebody had died, so they'd cleaned the room and it was getting ready to be given to a new resident. So Julie had to then go to the nurse's station, and she had to go and speak to the sister in charge because she had to get the key to go and unlock this room. Now, when she got the keys, she went back to room 28, and the taps were running, but nobody had been inside this room. They'd mysteriously turned themselves on. So when Julie got back to the office, she got the keys with sister and went back to room 28. Now, when they got there, inserted the key and tried to open the door. Now, for some reason, the door wouldn't budge, but it wasn't stiff where you couldn't open it and it was catching on the wood or anything. That she actually felt force behind the door preventing somebody from going in. So she was pushing the door and the door was moving past the latch and kept closing. Now, as you can imagine, this pretty much freaked Julie and her colleague out. So they give it a good shove and they managed to get into the dark room. They turned on the lights, and as they'd heard, the taps were running. Now keep in mind, nobody had been in this room for over a week because the residents had died and it was being cleaned and prepared to give to the new resident. Now, when they turned off the taps and Julie began to exit the room, Julie was shoved. She was actually pushed by unseen hands, and this was witnessed by the sister who was in charge of the care home that evening. So needless to say, she ran for the door, she couldn't open it. So she gave it a good shove and the sister pulled to, opened the door, locked it tight, and went and got themselves a coffee, a well-deserved coffee, as this had actually terrified them. And it happened again. The taps turned themselves on again, but this time when they went to check, there was nobody there and the taps had turned themselves off. It is very common for care homes to have resident ghosts due to the amount of people that have sadly passed away. And I have had some more interesting stories from Julie that she's encountered over the years. But before I leave you for the more stories of Julie's experience, I would like to share an experience that I had myself. I was working in Broad Green Hospital and I was on night shifts. Now, the way the shifts worked was that it was 7 on. You'd work 7 nights, so you'd start on the Monday, you'd work the 7 nights, and you would finish on the following Sunday. And on the ward that I worked, there was 3 main rooms. So as you go in, you had the nurses station, then you had bay 1, and that had, I think it was 8 beds in that room, and then there was another bay which was like male, female, and then that also had 8 beds in. And then next to there was obviously the bathrooms, and there was, I think, 4 private side rooms. Now, these side rooms were reserved for patients who were very poorly. And it just so happens that one of the side rooms had quite a lot of complaints with various things. So they decided to change that room into the nurse's restroom. As we used to go and sit in the sister ward manager's office. So we had our own nurse's room. Now, on the night shift, we got an unofficial 2-hour break if the ward was quiet. So there was 3 staff on at any one time of an evening, and it was my turn to go and have a break. So this must have been, I think I got my break around 2:30 in the morning. So I goes in, and they had a reclining chair, which you could, it was like, the way it reclined, it turned itself into a bed. So I got one of the blankets and chilled. I couldn't settle because of my sleeping pattern being all disturbed. And what I remember was I was lying there and I was just staring at the ceiling, and I had a portable DVD player just playing Everybody Loves Raymond at the time. And what I'd noticed this black shadow up on the ceiling, and I kept looking up at the shadow because it was just moving. Like, it was like a cloud, when you see a cloud in the sky and it slowly moves across. Now, I could not work out what was causing this shadow. And I was looking outside of the window, and there was no curtains in this room. So it was illuminated by any lights that were outside, and also the moon if it was a clear night. And I was staring up at this shadow for a good 5 minutes, and it began to move in a way that wouldn't be a normal shadow that was reflecting off a subject would move, because that is limited to obviously the motion of the object. Now, this shadow, I could not locate its source. And what I remember is that the shadow began to darken. And as it darkened, it became like a black mist. And I sat and watched this mist. It moved independently across the ceiling, and then it went towards the door, and then it moved down the wall, and it went outside where the gap of the door is at the top. It actually went out there and into the hospital. Now, I have no explanations to that whatsoever. So I definitely think there is a lot of truth to Julie's experience in her care home. Now, I would be very much interested if any of you guys would be able to share your experiences with care homes, hospitals, or even your own home. So it is very well known that hospitals and care homes are very haunted. Now, going back to Julie again, Julie was kind enough to share another experience with me. Now, this is what she said. She says she has another experience, and while she lived in Liverpool, she lived in a house in Bootle, and the house itself was a very old house. And what Julie relayed to me is that one night she'd put the kids to bed, and then she went downstairs to chill and watch some TV. Now, Julie heard the kids running around upstairs after she'd gone down to relax. So Julie went right back up the stairs, ready to shout at the kids to get back in bed and stop messing around. Now, as she got up the stairs, she couldn't hear a sound. She said it was cold. So she opened the bedroom door, and the kids were fast asleep. She went over to her kids and she checked each one of them to make sure that they weren't pretending. Nope. Each of her kids were in a deep stage of sleep. Now, this began to freak Julie out, and this wasn't the only experience that Julie had in that house. She said that she went downstairs to sit and try and relax. And as she got downstairs, she said it happened again. So Julie quickly ran back up the stairs to make sure that somebody hadn't broken in and was hiding. She searched all of upstairs and could not find anything that would explain the running around upstairs. Both her kids were still fast asleep, and it terrified her. So the day after, she decided to go to the library, as the internet I don't think was out then when Julie had her children. So she went to the library to look up the history of where she lived, and what she found sent shivers down her spine. She found that her street that she lived in had been hit by a bomb in the war, World War II. It was destroyed. Well, part of the house was destroyed. Now, as I said, this chilled Julie to the bone. So she went outside and she was examining her house, and she was able to see exactly where the bomb had hit, because the house was repaired and she could see the shapes of where the original bricks to the house was and where the newer bricks after it was repaired was. And she said that when she'd done some more history, she'd found that people had sadly been killed after the bomb had exploded upon the street, and it had kids in. So this is what Julie thinks was running around upstairs. She thinks it was some type of anniversary of the bomb that destroyed the house and would make the people upstairs panic and run to try and escape. But sadly they did not, and sadly this is the outcome of Julie's haunting. And that isn't the only tale. The next tale is something that is very, very chilling. Now this goes back to that same house. Julie said that she was in the bedroom that was in the front room of the house, and she was sorting out the washing, and the kids were playing downstairs, and her oldest daughter was in the bathroom. So as Julie was folding the pillows and putting them away in the wardrobes, doing the ironing and whatnot, she said that she'd seen a black figure walk past the bedroom. So Julie went into the next room and shouted to her daughter. She said, "Are you still in the bathroom?" And her daughter replied, "Yeah, I'm still in the bath." Oh, and she said, "Oh, I thought you'd got out and you'd gone into your room." Because she'd slept, her daughter had slept in the attic that was converted. After that, she would never sleep in the attic again. She said that she dragged her mattress down to her mum's bedroom and refused to sleep in that room. So upstairs, she'd hired phantom footsteps, multiple footsteps. She's also experienced a shadow person caught in the glimmer of her eye. Now, there is something else that happened in Julie's house. Now, this house is in Liverpool. I'll give you the number. It was Bedford Road in Bootle. And there is something else. Now, Julie remembered this because it was such a distinct memory. In fact, she'd actually blocked it out because she had some unfortunate things happen in her personal life. And I have to say, Julie has gone through so much from what she's told me, and she is such an amazing person and so friendly, given all the awful experiences that she's had. Now, I did check with her first before I shared this story with everyone. I won't give all the personal details, just to, although she was happy with it, I just want to respect their privacy. Now, I will show you a picture, and in this picture is something terrifying. Julie said to me that this was taken around 1:30 on Christmas morning. So as you can see in the photo, Julie sat with one of her children and is sat in the bedroom with presents all around her. And as you look at the photo, in the corner of the room, there is a dark shadow. If you didn't see it at first, you can clearly see it now. And this has never been explained. But this is the same house where Julie heard these phantom footsteps, and the same house where she caught that shadow figure crossing her doorway. So what do you make of Julie's hauntings? I think Julie has been very brave to share these stories, and it was if I ever get the chance to go pay a visit to this house, if it's empty or if it's got residents or whatnot, it will be very interesting to conduct an investigation. And if I do, I will be sure to let you guys know. So, I hope you enjoyed today's story. It's a little different. And I really would like to thank you, Julie, very much for sharing your experiences with me and to share the photo as well. I'm very grateful that you let me make this story for you. So anyway, guys, take care. Thank you very much for watching, and see you all in the next video.